I just got back to my studio and I had a delivery whilst I was away, a mystery box full of art supplies. Let's open it up together. How exciting! We have a box full of Kiwi Underglazes. Is this full of glaze? I think it's full of glazes. That is amazing. Kiwi Underglazes are made in New Zealand and we keep things as natural as possible. Kiwi Underglazes is a buildable underglaze, so apply thin layers to avoid cracking. We recommend 1 to 3 thin layers depending on your desired effect. Firing range looks like it goes from earthenware all the way to stoneware, but I'm going to be doing mid-fire, so we'll check that out and we'll sample the colors and see how the pigment holds up. This looks like they've given me, I think they've given me the whole set. Look at that. Look at all the color in there. I think they've given me every single color in their collection. So here are all the colors. I'd like to see what it looks like actually on the pottery aside from these swatches, and seeing how the glaze and the gloss reacts with the colors and how they hold up pigmentation. Particularly, I want to see how brush strokey they are and whether they're really opaque and what application I need to do to get a good result. I am so excited to test these out, and I actually have this test plate here that we're going to trial it on, and I might even paint a mug too, just to trial out the layering and the different applications aside from just doing swatches, to see how they actually work in an artistic sense as well. I think I might actually use this guide to check what colors I've got and I don't have. I'm pretty sure this looks like the whole collection. They are 100ml bottles. Oh my gosh, look at that yellow. That mustard is so cool. All right, let's get them all out and figure out where we're at. I got them all out and it looks like we have every single color on this sheet, which is amazing because some of these colors I just don't have, and I've tried colors similar that just have not worked. So I'm really excited to try these out and see if we've got some new colors to add to the collection and whether we have a new underglaze that I love to use. I think I might try and even just do like a one swatch around the rim of the plate to see what one coat looks like, but the main swatches I'm going to do 3 because that's about standard to get a nice opaque coverage with underglaze. Let's start swatching. That's one done. It's a little bit thicker than my usual underglaze. I kind of like it though. It goes on quite thin and then it kind of thickens up. It's quite an interesting consistency. It's a little bit more like gouache. Gouache. I could see it in my head how to spell it and then I was not pronouncing it correctly. But I do like it. It looks like it's going to be a nice pigment, but time will tell once we fire it.
If you're like me, you might have been receiving so many ads for this brand all over your social media. I kept seeing these ads and had to follow them to see people posting about the colors actually in practice. I really wanted to see how they truly hold up against the pieces, and the only way to truly know how they work was to get a set for myself. Kiwi Underglazes actually surprised me by sending me a box to my PO box listed on my website and gifting these to me. I have not been paid to share this video, but my pure intrigue and also seeing your response and knowing whether they are worth the hype made me want to share this video with you all.
I am about halfway through the swatches. Swatches always take so long, but I have some reflections and thoughts so far whilst I'm using these. They are a little bit different to underglazes I've used before. They actually feel more like what I imagine an end gobe would be like, so a coloured slip. It kind of goes on really wet, but it's quite thick. I would really like to try some of these colours watered down a little bit, like using them and building up colour like a watercolour, because I think it would just look so beautiful. It looks like you can get really nice like washy effects with the colours so far. I have noticed that between colours, some of the colours are a little bit thicker and some are a little bit thinner, but that's all got to do with the chemical makeup of the colour pigment and how they need to develop the underglaze to actually fit the clay body and things like that. So that's fine. That's just, you get that across all underglazes and glaze products. I do like the pigment so far. Like, it looks pretty good. I can still see some of the grey lead under some of the colours, but it will be interesting to see when it goes through the firing how they kind of cure on the piece itself. One other thing to note is that I'm also painting on bisque, not greenware. I usually paint on greenware. Some things I paint on bisque. So I'm noticing that it is drying out pretty quickly and sitting really thick on the piece itself. So I wonder with the greenware where there's already moisture behind the clay body that you're painting on, whether that would also change how you apply this underglaze. So far, I'm really liking it. They're just like things I'm noticing about it, and they're not like pros or cons, they're just things to keep in mind.
I particularly wanted to try it out because purchasing art supplies and then finding out that they aren't worth it can be such a financial strain to your art making process. I wanted to give these a good test run on mid-fire clay so you can decide whether they are worth it in your own practice. I know it's not for earthenware or stoneware, and you'll have to do your own testing for that, and also the glaze you use on top can also impact the way these respond, but I just thought it was a good representation to see them in practice. Because the underglaze did dry instantly on the surface, you do have a little less time to work on the coverage on the piece. This can actually be used to your advantage, but I'm noting it because it is different to how I usually build coverage on my pieces. Now, this wouldn't be a true test of their capabilities without trying them in practice. Alongside painting a paint palette plate, I have decided to do a flower vase in my signature floral style. Painting solid colors is one way to test them, but actually layering and using that buildable coverage they advertise is another test in itself, which is why I wanted to do two separate tests that show their capabilities.
Okie dokie. I am very, very happy with how this is looking. It is so, so pretty. I love swatch plates so much. I'm pretty happy with the coverage. I think I've done enough coats of all the colors. As I mentioned before, there is a little bit of gray lead underneath each color, but I'm thinking that by the time it fires, it might be really nice. I am really happy about the amount of different variations of each color. I'm really excited to fire it and see how it looks. All right, I got the swatch plate out of the kiln. I'm finally ready to glaze it, and I'm gonna pop it in the kiln tonight. I am really happy with the look of these so far post bisque firing. None of them have peeled off, none of them have come up, none of them have cracked. They look like they've got quite a nice coverage. Now is the test to see if the pigment holds up in the higher firing. It's ready. I'm so excited. All right, it is time to get the test plate of KIWI Underglazes out of the kiln. It has gone through its final firing. Actually shared a screenshot of the plate on my Instagram stories, and a few people had purchased the KIWI Underglazes and had mixed reviews. First impression, the yellows. The yellows are very gorgeous. Like, the yellows are not colors I've had issues with in the past, but they are very buttery. I really like that application. I like the pinks. Pinks do look like makeup swatches, which is really cool. Like, they've got like a nice tone to them, but so far the blues look nice. There's a lot of different tones of the green, which greens I don't have, which is cool. They all look pretty nice. It looks like they've all done a really good job of getting nice coverage. You can definitely see some brush strokes through some of the colors, which means that they probably were a bit watery when I applied them, and I probably need to mix them a bit more, but there's no cracking. It looks like it's reacted nicely to my clear glaze that's over the top. It looks like it sits nicely on the clay body. I'm really impressed with how that's turned out.
For this test, I'm painting exactly how I would paint any of my items, and I am not holding back. So with this glaze, I often found it would dry out before I could spread the underglaze around straight from the bottles. However, I love this in a way because I could water it down and still get an amazing solid color. I think you kind of get a lot more underglaze for your dollar, especially if you paint like me. It's just that the trade-off is sometimes, depending on what you're doing, you just have to be a bit more mindful of the thickness so you can get your desired result. These are just like the smallest of comments too, and it's just because I'm so used to using the current brand that I work with. I really love how bright the colors are. I think they are fabulous and already a range of possibilities for your art. I also like on their website they have an option to just buy the whole range or to buy the individual bottles, which I think is cool. I am using the colors straight from the bottle in this test, watering some down, mixing them, layering them whilst they are still wet. I'm using different brush strokes, I'm using different size brushes and layering techniques to build the texture and depth I need to get incredible details in my flowers. Some of the colors just went on like absolute velvet. They were so smooth and so vibrant. Some colors I did note would need a little extra patience to get the crisp line work I usually like in my style, but generally these colors were the ones that had such a strong color pigment. It was worth it in the end for the end result they provided, just being a little bit more patient with the application. For the vase itself, I picked my favorite color swatches from the plate and worked on mixing them into the arrangement of flowers. I did not mix mix these underglazes with any other brands. So if you're using multiple brands, please do your own testing because this is just the mixing of Kiwi underglaze colors. I also want to note that I wasn't the biggest fan of the purple colors. That's just because of my taste. I did find they were a bit washier than what I would like, but purple is a tricky color in the underglaze world. I think the colors they do have available are lovely, but not the ones I would readily use in my work. Although maybe that's a challenge in itself to use them to make an artwork that isn't a color palette I'm not usually working with. Otherwise, I really love the greens. There's greens there that I have not seen any other underglaze brands do, or ones that I cannot get my hands on because they're so popular. Like, they're so gorgeous. The browns have a really nice warmth to them. They're not washy and grayscale. Like, a lot of the browns I've found in the past have had like almost like a blue tone to them or a purple tone. The pinks, like I said in the palette reveal, is that they have this like almost like a makeup swatch look, and the oranges and yellows are so warm and solid. I love them. I did notice that the three deeper blues, I couldn't really tell much difference in the variation of them. Like, they were very similar to each other, but they are still so vibrant. They're like a cobalt. They're so striking. You notice the variation more in the 1 and 2 coats than you did in the actual solid 3 coats. As for the cracking, I did notice as I built up the colors that they did have a limit for how thick you could apply it. Often I pull glazes in spots to build up the coverage. For example, I dot the centers of flowers to build up seeds and rounded details so that you've got that sort of texture underneath the glaze. I couldn't do this with many of the colors of this underglaze, as I found it would crack and you would see it as it was drying that it was cracking. So I just kind of like peeled it off and went again. Sometimes I like kind of like rubbed the crack out like I would a crack on green worm. To combat this, I would just water it down and spread out the bead of glaze so it didn't pull on the surface. It just required a little bit more patience than what I had with other underglaze brands. All in all, I really liked this product. Like, I liked it so much. I'm literally nitpicking at things just so that you're aware of what you may need to do for your application, or maybe to combat some issues you've had with it. I just think that it is such a beautiful range of colors. It's such a wonderful product. I love that it's somewhat locally made. Kiwi being in New Zealand, I feel like we're neighbors, best friends, sisters maybe. I just love that it's locally made and a small business, and I'm just so impressed by the range of colors they've been able to develop.
I have my final test piece out of the kiln, and I also have the test plate, and it's time for my final and official review of the Kiwi Underglaze product. I love them. I think that they're really great. I love that they are a buildable coverage, but most importantly, a lot of these colors, they are so vibrant, they are so opaque. The pinks are a notable favorite because I haven't been able to find a really great pink anywhere else, and I've been sort of just like mixing my own using stains, and so these pinks are sort of mixed to the colors that I would actually mix my underglazes to. I also love that 1 and 2 coats looks just as amazing as 3 coats. Sometimes with underglazes, 1 to 2 coats can sometimes look a little bit washy, and I mean that's the point, but just doesn't have that solid color backing behind it. This is my vase. I really absolutely am in love with that color. Look how vibrant that is and how it pops against one another. That is using the underglazes in practice. The only thing I did notice is what I mentioned before, is that sometimes I would put it on a little bit too thick and you do have just like a little bit of cracking. I was quite aware of it, and you could actually see when it might have cracked as well. So you could like carve it off and go again. But that's my only critique, is that it just cracks a little bit. So just be mindful of some of the colors, and when you build it on, that it may crack if you put it on too thick. I give Kiwi Underglazes my tick of approval, and I hope that if you are going to try them, that you have a lot of fun. There's a lot of really fun colors. The colors just make my style look so different because there's just so much different variation in the color that I haven't been able to play with before. I totally think Kiwi Underglazes is worth the hype. Thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. If you liked this review video, please let me know. I had so many questions asking me if I tried the Kiwi Kiwi Underglazes. I had such a big response when I was sharing me trialing them that people were like, are they worth it? Are they good? I want to buy them. Please let us know. So if you like this video, please let me know, and please suggest anything else you would like me to try, because I would love to. This is so much fun, and so fun to explore the medium and see how it really works and sort of give you a bit of feedback on whether it's worth it. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching another one of my YouTube videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more pottery content.